white, light, and racially ambiguous people are allowed to look average. They're allowed to look like everybody else. They're allowed to look common, and that is fine. And I feel like because Lupita isn't someone who wears a weave and shows her body, it's like not considered sexy, because people can't fathom a dark-skinned woman being sexy if it's not very explicit. And it was kind of like linked to what I was talking about with like Love Island and Olandria, and how like a lot of people were always talking about her body, and they're thinking about her body, especially about her body because of what she can do for people, and like that being kind of the main form that people can acknowledge when someone is sexy or beautiful. So it's just like this thing that people expect dark-skinned people to be okay with being called ugly, and their beauty is also always up for debate.
Sometimes it don't make no sense. Does it really have to? There is nothing I can say.
Hi, welcome to Mayowa's World. Hi, y'all. Welcome to Mayowa's World. My name is Mayowa, and on my platform, I talk about colorism, featurism, texturism, and anti-blackness. Today, we're going to be talking about the dislike of the regular black girl. So the first person I'm going to talk about is a woman called naomipilula. She is from Zambia, and she uploaded a selfie of herself that got a lot of hatred simply because she has black features. This would go under the category of featurism, which is the discrimination of black features. This is all dealing with desirability and the harm that happens to black women when they do not benefit from Eurocentric standards of beauty or stereotypical forms of beauty. People feel like because Naomi is somebody who is embracing her naturalness, her natural nose and her natural hair, she is deserving of hatred and harm. I think for a lot of people, the only kind of representation that they want from dark-skinned women is women who benefit a lot from desirability. And when you are not that, you will suffer severely. Something that I think is interesting is that the concept of the girl next door, and how the girl next door became a very like marketable aesthetic to symbolize someone who looks like the everyday white woman, and how that was seen as a very kind of cool and relatable aesthetic. I think dark-skinned women are expected to be constantly glammed up, and I think that when dark-skinned women are not glammed up, there is a certain kind of harshness and criticalness that they are met with, and how dark-skinned people aren't able to be seen as a girl next door. So when you see people who do look like this, you're shamed for looking like this, while simultaneously people can also make fun of people who get nose jobs, and when the nose job looks too severe, that is also criticized. But when your natural features look too natural, that's also criticized. So it's like this thing where you're forced into playing the game of desirability, but you are punished if you're not playing it well enough. And the same features that people hate on black women are championed in other women. So for those who have seen online, there was a lot of discourse around Lupita because a girl called Miss Georgie went online and talked about how she doesn't feel like Lupita is a pretty dark-skinned girl, and that there could be better dark-skinned representation.
I feel like y'all just be picking the darkest, ugliest black girl and giving her kudo points for being pretty. But like, it's just kind of like how y'all been shoving down people's necks with Lupita. And I'm not saying she's like but ugly. I'm not saying that. I just feel like I hate that when it comes to black girl beauty standards, y'all always pick the struggle. Y'all always pick the struggle black girl.
And I want to talk about this because, of course, there's just one person's opinion online, but I think that this speaks to a bigger discussion around the hatred or dislike of regular dark-skinned looking women. So Miss Georgie was talking about how she feels like Lupita isn't a pretty dark-skinned girl, and then she proceeds to show images of the dark-skinned girls that she finds pretty. And something that I was realizing was that there seems to be two disconnects between Lupita and the quote-unquote pretty dark-skinned women, and it is because Lupita is someone who wears her natural hair, and it's also because Lupita is somebody who does not overtly sexualize herself. So there are a lot of channels online that call themselves exoticals, and there are women who believe that the best representation for blackness is going to be women who are deemed exotic. And I think typically speaking, what would count someone as exotic is if you have a looser hair texture, if you have lighter skin, or if you have more skinny or thin features. Anyway, it's a weird side of the internet to me. And something that I also was realizing with it is that the kind of representation that they want or they like has a very specific kind of look. It is usually people who are wearing weave or benefit from texturism, as in have like a looser hair texture. So I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. Her name is Khadija. She is from Germany and she is so intelligent and she needs to make a YouTube channel, but she's too scared because of all the hate, but she's really, really smart. But she was the one who was talking to me about how an expectation for Lupita to wear straight hair, because I feel like a lot of people think that Lupita is a perfect looking woman, but the thing that they don't like about her is the fact that she's not wearing a straight hair texture. This isn't the first time that publicly people have called Lupita unattractive. I remember that there was an athlete who also said that Lupita was unattractive. And I also remember Lupita talking about her experiences with colorism and how she viewed herself because of the ways that she was treated. So it's just like this thing that people expect dark-skinned people to be okay with being called ugly, and their beauty is also always up for debate. Like, I remember when Anuk Yai came out and people were like, oh, she's so pretty, she's like a black Barbie doll. But then I saw that when Anuk had shaved her hair, people were really upset about her. People were really upset about it and said that she was masculinizing herself, even though she was the person who decided to shave her own hair. And often whenever people talk about the beauty of Anuk, they usually will use an image of her with straight hair. And I think that that's like speaking to the fact that you can only compliment dark skin beauty if it's playing into Eurocentric standards of beauty by having straight hair or being very skinny. I'll never forget how people treated Francesca and saying that her playing Juliet was taking away roles from dark-skinned women who are way prettier than her, even though she is actually a very pretty girl. They felt like there was, that is when we talk about featurism, and how because Francesca is someone who has stereotypically very black features and she's not wearing a weave, she wears braids or her natural hair, and she has the features that she does, people were just like, she's not pretty enough. Meanwhile, Tom Holland or whatever the hell his name, Tom Holland had no issue being told if he was attractive enough, even though he looks like every single white boy I've ever seen work at Starbucks. So only one of those people's looks was up for debate while the other was assumed to be fine. White, light, and racially ambiguous people are allowed to look average. They're allowed to look like everybody else. They're allowed to look common, and that is fine. Like, we are so used to our black women looking mixed that when we see an actual black woman, it's making people mad that she's not feminine enough, that she's not the kind of black woman we want to see. We want her hair to be loose. We want her eyes to be blue. We want her skin to be light. You don't want a black person to play the role. If you as a black person think that she's not pretty because she's too masculine and she doesn't deserve the role and it deserves to go to somebody lighter or who has a thinner nose or who has a smaller jaw or who has more feminine features, baby, we will never be free. As in, we will never be free. Like, I literally was watching a video with Michael Cera in it, and like, I remember girls saying that Michael Cera was a really attractive guy, and the only reason people thought he was attractive was because he was a dorky white man, and that is seen as like an attractive, cute feature. But you want me to believe that Francesca shouldn't get a role even though she has the natural talent for it, simply because she doesn't want to wear a weave and she doesn't fit this like Eurocentric standard of beauty. This is the comment. Yes, Tom gets to be average, but dark-skinned women can't. People are in my comments arguing that Francesca is not feminine enough and that she's below average, but no one is talking about Tom. I haven't seen any discourse about how Tom looks or how the average palm-colored man who is an actor looks. All of these men, they all look the same. You know why? Because they look average. All of these women, they look the same. Same font, one's bold, one's italicized. Average non-black people are allowed to be average. There's no discourse about his features, advocating that it's not masculine enough. But the truth is that y'all think people who are ugly are not deserving of love. You think that only attractive people are deserving of opportunities, of work, of being seen, of being validated, of being loved over. And it blows my mind that you don't think that ugly people are deserving of many things. And I am not saying Francesca is ugly at all. But even if she was an ugly person, if her talent is there, why are you advocating for her not to take that role? Our obsession with beauty and defending beautiful people and wanting to only see beautiful people, and we're hypercritical of black women, but we allow people like this to walk scotch-free, is a sickness. And this is also the reason that people had issues with that statue in New York in Times Square, because people just don't like the idea of average or regular looking people. People don't like the idea of regular looking Black women being seen out in public, which is so ironic because when I go down the street, I see regular Black women all the time. But somehow you only want the representation to be people who are very skinny, straight hair, smaller features, benefit from textures. And Lupita's aesthetic isn't giving like a BBL baddie or anything. Like, she has a different kind of aesthetic. And I feel like because she doesn't sexualize herself, that is also the disconnect of people not giving her the praises of being a sexy person. Because this majority person said like, oh, Lupita is just not sexy. But I feel like the reason you don't think she's sexy is because it's not like in your face. And I'm not saying this as like a slut shaming way, because I am someone who, if y'all see me out, the girls is out, the legs is out, I'm somebody who likes to show skin. And I feel like because Lupita isn't someone who wears a weave and shows her body, it's like not considered sexy, because people can't fathom a dark skinned woman being sexy if it's not very explicit. And it was kind of like linked to what I was talking about with like Love Island and Olandria, and how like a lot of people were always talking about her body, and they're thinking about her body, especially about her body because of what she can do for people, and like that being kind of the main form that people can acknowledge when someone is sexy or beautiful. But how like there should be discussion around her face and her features also being just as prominent as her body. You know, I feel like Lupita is somebody who is intentional, like is intentional with how she wears her hair, how she presents, how she comes forward. And she's been a pretty girl since day dot. Like, I don't know if y'all ever watched the film Sugar, but Lupita in Sugar, she was always that girl. She was always giving that girl. She was never giving anything else but that girl. And I feel like that's something that she seems anchored in that way. Like, she knows deep in her heart that she is that girl, and she doesn't need to show or do too much to prove it, because she knows that that's who she is. But I feel like what Miss Georgie says is what a lot of people think, but they just don't feel confident enough to say it. Because I've seen so many videos of light skin or lighter skin people saying that they feel like a dark skinned person doesn't deserve the props that they're getting, doesn't deserve even too, Ice Spice said the same thing about Doechii. There is a thing of people just not feeling like dark skinned people are deserving, even when they're the intense minority, they're still not deserving of it. And that level of anti-Blackness has to be worked on individually, because ultimately what that says to me is that you don't see yourself as beautiful. No matter how much you try and spin it, your mind is still deeply colorist. You're still indoctrinated into the same thing that you're not going to benefit from. And people were saying that this Miss Georgie person was doing this for clout online. But like, it's so wild that you want to exclude the only people who would probably listen to your music, which is Black women. Y'all not going to play with Lupita though, I'll tell you that. Lupita is that girl. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.